All right, so here's our next video, going over these questions. All right, so we have a rhombus, has vertices -1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 0, and 0, -1. What's the perimeter of the rhombus? Well, perimeter. To find the perimeter of a shape that is graphed, you need to find the distance of all your outside pieces. So yes, you could find the distance of all 4 outsides and add them up. Or you could also know a property of a rhombus that all sides are congruent, and then you only have to do one distance and times it by 4. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to find one distance and times it by 4. I'm going to find the distance of T to A. So my distance formula is the square root of my x's subtracted, 2 minus 3 squared, added to your y's subtracted and squared, 3 minus 0 squared. So my distance equals, well, I subtract those and I'm going to get -1 squared plus 3 squared. I square them, add them together, I'm going to get my distance is 10. Wait a second, how many sides did I say I had? 4. They're all the same. I multiply this by 4. My answer for perimeter is going to be 4 radical 10. So, go over here, type 4, go to this guy, hit the radical button. I don't want that one. I want this one, and hit 10. Check. Good. Next one. All right, so the coordinates of vertices, CDE8 of parallelogram, are those. What are the coordinates of P, the point of intersection of diagonals? Okay, so you actually don't need the graph paper of this one. You just need to know what happens, what's special about these diagonals in a rectangle. In a parallelogram. A property of diagonals in a parallelogram is that they bisect each other. So now I need to think, okay, wait a second. What do I know is the formula for a bisector? Well, wait a second. Perpendicular bisector. Bisector, I used my midpoint formula. So I need to find the midpoint of either CE or DH, and that is my answer. Because the midpoint of CE and DH will actually be the same thing. So I'm going to use my midpoint formula. I will do CE. -5 plus -1 divided by 2, comma, 5 plus -1 over 2 will give me my midpoint is -3, 2. And if you did DH, you would have got the same exact thing. You could do it to check, but since it is a parallelogram, it will work. Good. Moving on to 11. All right, we got a rhombus here. You need to know a few facts about a rhombus to do this. So the perimeter of this rhombus is 68. So going back to 2 questions ago, I know a rhombus has 4 equal sides. So I can take 68, divide it by 2, not 2, my bad, I have 4 sides. Dividing it by 4 to get each side is 17. So this is 17, that's 17, this is 17, and so is this. I then know that the whole length of TG is 16. Wait a second, what did I just talk about on my last question? That in a parallelogram, diagonals bisect each other, so they get cut in half. Well, every property in a parallelogram is true in a rhombus. So that means TR is 8 and RG is 8. I'm going to look at this shape right here. It's a triangle, specifically a right triangle, because in a rhombus, those diagonals are also perpendicular. So I can use a squared plus b squared equals c squared to find this right here, IR. So I can do x squared plus 8 squared equals 17 squared. Oh gosh. Let's see, x squared plus 64 equals, I don't know, 17 squared. 17 squared, that's 1. 289. X squared equals minus 64. 225. Take the square root of both sides. I get x to be 15. However, I want the length of what? Let's see. IE. IE is this whole thing. So how many 15s do I need? 2 of them. My answer is going to be 30 instead. So I'll go over here, 30. Check. Next one, number 12. So I have a parallelogram JKLM. Well, better draw a picture of that. Yikes, whatever. JKL. Doesn't have to be a perfect parallelogram. L exceeds M by 30. That means angle L is going to be bigger. This is going to be X plus 30. It doesn't like some of my numbers. That means M will be X. How can I solve for X? Well, wait a second. These are consecutive angles on a parallelogram. That means they're supplementary. They add up to equal 180. I don't know why it doesn't like some of my numbers. That's a 30. So I solve for X. Get X is 75. What angle do I want? I want J. J is right here. Angle J is congruent to angle L because opposite angles in a parallelogram are congruent. So if I add 30 to this, that is the measure of angle J, which is 105. 105. Oh, multiple choice. Which of the following is not a property of all rhombi? Rhombi is plural for rhombus. So this is basically just a property question. In a rhombus, is it true that both pairs of opposite angles are congruent? Yes, that is a true fact. Is it true that my diagonals are congruent in a rhombus? No. This is for a rectangle and square. Wow. That's what it's true for. Sorry for my poor writing. So it's true in a rectangle and a square only, not a rhombus. The last three are true in the rhombus. All right, what do we have left? We got 3 questions? Yeah, those should be our last video then. That means I'll finish them up. Sorry about that. Don't know why you can't show work for number 14 right now. All right, so talk through this. In the diagram below, ABCD is a rhombus with diagonals AC and BD. If ABD is 12, what's the measure of angle BAC? Well, you can know in a rhombus, going back actually to this question, in the middle, there's a bunch of right angles. So in this picture for 14, angle BEA is 90 degrees. If I already have a 12 degrees in that other triangle too, 90 plus 12 plus x will add up to equal 180. So you will find that that angle is going to be 78 degrees. Number 15. Another multiple choice property question, which is not enough to prove it's a square. So I got to think about squares. In a square, is it true that, is this enough to show it's a square, that my diagonals are congruent and perpendicular? So if they're congruent, it shows it's a rectangle. And if they're perpendicular, it shows it's a rhombus. So since it's a rectangle and a rhombus, this one works. That's good. So you're basically thinking, can I prove it's a rectangle and a rhombus? If you can, it's a square. Next one. Diagonals are congruent. That shows it's a rectangle. And one pair of adjacent sides are congruent. That means sides next to each other are congruent. That shows it's a rhombus. That's good. So rectangle and rhombus. Next one. The diagonals are perpendicular. That shows it's a rhombus. And one pair of adjacent sides are congruent. Oh, hold on. That shows it's a rhombus. Also, I never showed on number 3 that it's a rectangle. So 3 is my answer. Last one. All right, we got a lot to read here. We got a parallelogram, okay, with angle B to be 75. So this is 75. I want EFA, so I want right there. We also got some bisectors. DG's bisecting, and we have, what else? CF bisects also. Wow. So let's see. Bisector tells me that these two right here will be congruent. Okay. So what I'm going to do to start, I want to find that whole angle up here, what this whole angle measure is, by doing 180 minus 75. Where's my calculator? 180 minus 75. So 105. So this whole thing's 105, but then it's bisected, so it's cut in half. So these two parts are 52.5 and 52.5. Now wait a second. Parallelogram, these lines are parallel. So if this is 52.5, down here is 52.5. That means these two angles are supplementary. So I can do 180 minus 52.5 to get my answer to be 127.5. 127.5. Check. Good. So now, there you go. Those are all the answers. So as you can see, I will get to see your work. You can see your work. They're all good. When you're done, you hit the submit button. Would you like to submit? Yep. And then there we go. It has been submitted. And you can exit it. You can log out. You're done. You're not able to edit anymore. So what that means is when you do your, the midterm that does not count, as soon as you hit that submit button, you are done. Okay. So hope that video helped. Let me know if you have any questions.